Hi everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I'm Peter, and this is Tim.
Hello.
We're going to talk about the night of episode 5. It's called The Season of the Witch.
And oh, do you better believe I was hoping there were some actual witches in this.
Yeah, that did not happen. Full spoilers, as always, guys, for the episode. Uh, because this is actually the first episode of the second half. We're past the halfway point now.
Okay.
So, no, I think it's interesting where it is because I was expecting a lot more
Hmm.
investigating the crime and the murder and the night of when
Um,
when I
hmm.
feel like for the most part there was more of it in this episode, but I feel like for the most part like 2 through 4 weren't about that at all. They were about just kind of Naz in prison and the sort of the politics of the lawyers and the politics of being inside a prison. Like, you know, it was just
Yeah.
kind of the instant stuff that was happening. Whereas this one did delve into a little bit because Stone was investigating stuff, but
Hmm.
I thought we'd be much further along into the investigating stuff by now.
I don't know if you know this because Lord, Lord knows I've done no research, but um, do you know if this is going to be like one complete story for this season?
Oh
Do
yeah,
you
no,
know?
it's a limited series, Tim. It's not a season.
Oh, so it's not. Oh,
It's
okay.
eight
Okay.
episodes and we're done.
Okay. All right, because yeah, I didn't know if we get to like like the last episode and the judge is like, I declare you, and then like it stops and it's like next season, like,
Yeah. Well,
all
I'll
right.
say this, Tim. You claim to have done no research, and then you followed that up with exactly, the evidence to prove that you had done zero research.
You're welcome for me being honest.
All right. So where do we start? Let's start with the penis, which we got a lot. We got a lot of this dead guy's penis.
Yeah, yeah, I figured you'd probably be fixated on that for some reason. That actually, no, the what was even worse than that, I would gladly watch like 12 more minutes of that penis if I didn't have to see another second of him putting that syringe in the guy's eye. That like I
All
did
right. Okay.
I had to squint like from the screen on that. Eyeballs are never those not my one thing I like to stay away from anything to do with eyeballs.
But penises,
I'm fine with that. Yeah,
they're okay. Yeah. Yeah. You can
yeah.
put anything in a penis. You're fine with that.
I don't like anything going in there, but let's not talk about that.
Um, no, I think the more interesting thing about this scene, other than of course the constant, the coroner being like, "Oh, just plop it down next to that
Yeah,
dick right there," and then every time it cut to the photo, the dick was like practically flopping on top of it. But no, the more interesting thing about that scene, of course, was
him
the
practicing his lines.
yeah, like the
Yeah,
DA being like, "Oh, would this be like this?" And then
yeah.
he says it, and it's just like, "I'm not convinced." And he says it again, as if he's going to, like, as he would say it in court. I'm like,
Yeah.
this is bullshit. And this ties into the sort of the main sort of side of like the DA and like the prosecution story in this one is watching them kind of manipulate things. Like they get that CCTV footage of when he picked her up,
Hmm. Yeah.
and he's like, "Oh, this isn't as good because it's not like him like going after her." But she's like, "No. This is him lying in wait. This is
Mhm.
premeditation." And she's like,
Yeah.
"Put this into it," and it's like, "What? No!" Like,
Well, I forget, like, wasn't there in an earlier episode, I think it was like Stone or something mentioned something about how it's not like trying to prove what actually happened, but it's just trying to like present two stories and having the jury decide like which one's better.
oh yeah, that was
Like,
something that he said in
yeah.
episode
So yeah,
2, I
it's
think.
funny. Yeah, like and now you kind of seeing like each person kind of gathering like all the evidence and facts for them to present like their case, and it is like really messed up. Yeah, like you said, like how the way they're manipulating it and basically just doing what they want to get to the point they want to get to.
Yeah, you feel. I mean, in an ideal world, you think the prosecution would be trying to prove what they think is the truth, and it feels like no. We're just going to make him look as bad as possible. Because that
Yeah.
whole moment where they take the witness off the board, like she crosses him off, and Yeah, she crosses that witness off, and it's almost just like, oh, well, it's not that he's not telling the truth or what he saw wasn't accurate. It's just that the jury's not going to trust him because he can't
Yeah.
give all the like the facts that he needs to give to like make him sound trustworthy
Yeah.
because he won't say where he was going. So instantly the jury's going to be like, no, no, no. And it's the same thing when you see that like both her and then Stone take the good boy like sign off the boards
Yeah.
for Naz when we find out he's been lying about something because he's been taking
Yeah.
Adderall.
Yeah, it's and quite honestly, it makes me terrified that like, you know, like who the fuck knows like if something like this ever happened to me and like you're innocent, but then just the way people can manipulate a story is like
Yeah,
terrifying.
that side of it's very it feels like scarily real, like,
Yeah.
or at least I mean I hope it's not, but like part of me feels like it probably is to an
Well,
extent.
well, I'll tell you what's really scary is now I'm kind of thinking about I just got into this like a true crime podcast called Sword and Scale, which is really good, but just like the most like fucked up murder cases and stuff, and they play like a lot of stuff like like dialogue from court cases and witness interviews and stuff, and now I'm kind of thinking about like some of the episodes of that I've listened to, and I'm kind of going like, oh, I wonder, when they did talk to a cop or, some type of expert witness, if it was a case like that coroner, someone coming up to him being kind of like, hey, like,
Mm.
maybe you could say this, so it is very scary to think about.
I did really like the scene of the cop like tracking the movements of the night,
Yeah.
and just the way it intercut with like the actual sort of clips from that first episode and the way the
Oh,
music was playing. It felt very like, I don't know, like it's just it was almost a very simple idea, but the direction made it feel like a scene. It made it feel like this is
yeah.
important because it made it feel like he was going to find something.
And I like this cop character because it's very much like I don't know, like I want to believe that he's kind of like a good guy, that he's gonna like find something that's gonna help the case or something. Like I
Well,
like
it goes back to I think it's episode 2 where Stone said to him, "Deep down, you know he didn't do it,"
yeah.
and like I think on the surface he believes he did, but it's this kind of thing like there's something there it doesn't feel right. And
Mhm.
I think I almost seen some of that in his face in this episode as he was like going to the locations and looking at things and like
Yeah.
in that scene where he was talking to the DA and she's like, oh, this is premeditation, this is this is that.
Mhm.
Uh, but meanwhile, Stone is investigating, going to the crime scene with his own DNA guy, or
Mhm.
well, I don't know if it's DNA, but some sort of
Some
CSI guy
yeah.
who's canvassing and looking at things, and
Mhm.
he finds what might be blood in the back of the house, which would conflict with everything because Naz, as far as they know and we know, never went out the back.
Mhm.
Um, so that was cool. But the more interesting part, of course, was uh, him when he goes to see Naz at the prison. And we'll talk about
Mhm.
Nazi stuff. We'll leave that till
Mhm.
after. But when he goes to see Naz at the prison, and he mentions the guys, the witness, and he's like, "No, wait, there was two of them."
Those two, yeah.
Yeah, and Stone, because he lied about the drug, doesn't necessarily believe him right away, but they go and check out the footage. Him and Chandra go and check out the footage. Which, by the way, yeah, Chandra went to him for help because she got the case because her boss didn't want it anymore, which we found out last episode,
Yeah.
and she just got dumped with it. And they go and look at the footage and they see the same interview that we've seen. I can't remember if it was the end of episode 1 or uh, early episode 2. But
Yeah.
when the witness was being interviewed and he's asked if he was alone, and he hesitates and says, "Yeah, I was alone."
Yeah.
And it was nice to see that come back because for us, he was obviously lying.
Mhm.
So it was like a real sense of gratification seeing Stone see that footage and go, "He's lying."
Yeah.
Like I got something out of that because I'm like,
Mhm.
that's exactly what I was thinking at the time, and I knew he was lying because I'd seen it. But there's something gratifying about seeing the characters finally sort of see this.
Yeah.
So yeah, he goes and visits the witness and has a chat with him. He's got his gloves on. Which I'm assuming was just so that he didn't leave prints anywhere. But then again, he was handing out his business cards, so
Yeah.
like if you're trying to keep your identity concealed, then that's probably not one of the things you should be doing. So if someone's got a
Yeah.
guess as to why he had his gloves on, do tell. Now he gets some information out of him.
Mhm.
Uh, he gets information about this guy named
Dwayne Reed.
Dwayne Reed. Yes, which apparently is a
Yeah.
pharmacy chain.
Which is yeah, it's actually funny because I've they're not really prevalent everywhere in the U.S., but that is like the big pharmacy in New York. Like if
Right.
you like the few times I've been to New York is there's like one on every corner. So um yeah, I just thought that was a little funny.
Yeah. Which I don't even have anything to say about that connection, or if it
Yeah.
means anything. Like I really don't know. But he assures that he's not going to go see this guy who
Yeah.
who he's checked out and finds out has a history of breaking and entering and like assault, and
Yeah.
he does anyway. And I got to tell you, the last like 2 minutes of this episode were so goddamn tense.
Like there's a scene where he first of all him going into the back room, I already got a bad feeling, but then he runs
Yeah.
away and then he runs after him and then even more of a bad feeling, and then they like jump over that fence, and then there's that scene where he just kind of peers into like this dark alley,
And it's
and
like,
then
no, don't go in the dark alley. Whatever you do, not go in the dark
yeah,
alley.
that's
And
and he kind of turns around and you think, okay, thank God he's giving up, he's gonna go call someone, but then no, he like picks up like a little weapon thing,
it's
and I
like,
was like,
no, Stone, what are
no.
you doing? Nah, you're gonna get yourself killed. You dumb fool. Um, but nah, like that reminded me, along with the scene earlier of like, the cop putting the tracking the movement scene.
Mhm.
It reminded me of the tension of episode one, which is I think all the episodes have been really well directed, right? I
Yeah.
think it's been solid TV making, but I don't think anything's touched episode one. Episode one was like
Mhm.
phenomenal, like off the
Yeah.
charts, amazing. And this wasn't as good as that, but this was probably the best episode since that, because it
Yeah.
had some of that tension, and because it had elements of the case, and it had more interesting questions, and it even gave you some doubt about Naz, like
Mhm.
Naz, like lying about the Adderall and shaving his head, and it's
Mhm.
funny that they bring up that he shouldn't have done that, like because of the appearance and it looks more like a criminal, but at the
Yeah.
same time, as soon as he did that, like the idea that he might have done it feels
Mhm.
more likely somehow.
Yeah, well, actually, I never really thought about it, but I saw Mario a few days ago when we went to see Suicide Squad, and we were talking about the show beforehand, and I was saying something about like, yeah, like I just want to know like how he's gonna like get out of it, how they're gonna prove he's innocent, and Mario's like, well, I mean, we don't know that he's innocent. I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? And he's like, well, I mean, technically, like, we don't know. Like, we're made to believe it, but it could be like a manipulation thing. Like, we don't know 100% for sure. And then I started thinking, I was like, fuck, like, yeah, I mean, I guess I did just kind of take it for granted that he's innocent. And like, in my heart, I believe he's innocent, but there is a chance that he might not be. He might have
There's
been on
that.
some crazy drug or something. And
There is a chance. I mean, me and Connor have spoken about this, and we like, okay, he could have killed her. He could have then washed his clothes, but then his hand was still bloody from earlier. So
yeah,
why would that still be bloody if he'd washed up after he? And if he didn't wash up, then why has he not got blood all over him? Because she was stabbed like 20 times, and
yeah,
like it was a bloodbath up there. Like he'd be covered. So
yeah.
there's things that don't quite add up with that, but at the same time, it is a possibility. And this episode, more than any of the other ones, I think put doubt in our heads that it's
Mhm.
possible.
Yeah.
Uh, but just to stay on Stone's side of things for just a minute, obviously the ending, and we had the fluorescent lights, which was a really ambiguous kind of ending, and they ended it there in the
Yeah.
alleyway. So I'm, leaving it off in a good tense moment for next week.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing I wanted to bring up was the cat, because the cat was always a metaphor for Naz, because he took him to the is it the pound or that's the pound, right?
Yeah, yeah, like a
Yeah.
pound animal shelter. Yeah,
Yeah, and he's like, right, 10 days till the cat like gets killed, because that's just the waiting time before the animals get incinerated, and the whole thing was a metaphor for Naz. It was him sitting, it was him having to do something to get the cat out of the prison, because he's a goner, after a certain amount of time. And we're kind of seeing that happen with Naz because he's changing so much, and there's certainly metaphors to be had there that I'll talk about in a minute. But him bringing the cat out, and even though he's got allergies, and finding a way to do it, like, it's almost just a metaphor for him never having a case like this before. Like, he's so out of his element, he doesn't know what to do. And it's the same with the cat. He doesn't know what to do. So he just puts it in a different room. He buys toys. He's trying to make do the best way he can.
Yeah.
And I think this is a metaphor for him. I don't think it's a coincidence that this is happening with the cat, the same episode that he's starting to dig into things and possibly find connections or a story that could doubt the jury's minds as to his guilt. Like, I feel like they're paralleling in a really weird way. And by the way, him leaving the house and saying, "I'm going out," to the cat, cracked me up, A. But B, as someone who owns some cats, very realistic.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very interesting. I didn't really think about it, but that's a very good point. I can see that. And even like the kind of reluctance of him at first to kind of take the case back on, when like that that other lady comes to him and he's kind of like, "Oh, well, it's gonna be like $50,000 and stuff." She's like, "Well, no, like, come on, you can't afford that." And then him kind of reluctantly being like, "Okay," and then like you said, that's around the same time he's like, going back to the animal shelter and being like, "Oh, all right, no one's taken him yet, fine." And so that's very interesting that I didn't catch that, but I think you are right about that. I did like him just like throwing all the toys in the room and then just kind of sitting by the door waiting, and then hearing the little jingle of the ball and being
what?
like, okay.
Like, hearing that little jingle is it's a little win moment. You're kind of like happy. Oh, right, the cat's happy. Right, we can rest easy. It's fine. But no, that was cool stuff. On the flip side of things, oh, we didn't mention his need for Viagra. I don't really have much to say about it. I'm not.
There's a few like weird stuff, like all this stuff like with his feet, and now like this Viagra stuff. It's like so like, I don't know, like it seems weirdly out of place, but I kind of like it. Like, it is like this weird little side story that's going on. Like, I don't know if it's a metaphor for something else, but I'm just like, all right, whatever. I'm kind of interested in this.
Me and Connor speculated that like it's kind of a metaphor in the sense that like it'll probably not clear up until he somehow gets his shit together to help Naz. But like that's just a kind of guess. The Viagra thing, I'm not like. I'm guessing it's like, if you link it to the metaphor with the cat, I would guess it's maybe in order to succeed here, he has to give up another part of his life.
Yeah.
So,
like that.
In this literal sense, it's to deal with his feet, he has to give up his sex life, at least for a while.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm maybe stretching that there. I don't know. I'd be curious to hear other people see what they think.
Yeah.
But let's flip over to Naz, because I think the weaker half of the episode is Naz in the prison.
I mean, if you like, I still think it's strong. I guess if you had to compare it, the other stuff was more compelling. But I do think this prison stuff is really interesting.
I think it's like well directed and stuff. But I think compared to the other stuff, which feels like more plausible and real, I feel like the prison stuff is a bit more far fetched. Like, I'm not entirely sure prisons, like modern day prisons, are still exactly like these kind of prisons that we see in TV and movies. I'm also not entirely sure that I believe that Naz becomes this much of a hard ass in 2 weeks he's been there, 3 weeks.
Yeah, that's my only complaint about it, is how fast it seems. Like, I think it is definitely believable, just maybe not in that time span. Like, given a year or 2 years or something, I can kind of see him going down this road obviously I don't know fucking anything about real life prison, but just kind of going off what I know from movie and TV prison, the stuff I've seen kind of fits in that mold. But I see what you're saying. I do still find it like pretty interesting.
Don't get me wrong. There's stuff that comes out of it. Obviously, the whole thing with him having pent up rage, that's also adding to this doubt where, could he have done it? Like, is this something that's inside of him? But then part of me is also thinking, well, No, if I was wrongly accused of this and I was thrown in prison for it, I'd be pissed too. Like, my rage would have built up at that point as well. So it could go either way, but it puts the
Yeah.
doubt in your head. Like, that whole idea that he's got this built up rage inside of him is there now.
Yeah, actually, I really like that scene. Not like I necessarily want to see him be this vengeful, rage-filled asshole or anything, but in a weird way, it was kind of nice to see, this guy that's kind of been like, he almost seemed like, just for like the entire show so far has been like, very scared, very meek, very kind,
Pushoverish.
yeah, getting pushed over and stuff, and to finally see him get like a little like, you know, what do you call it? I don't want to say like comeuppance or something, but
No,
to
well, I mean, it is corrupt a little bit because the guy did try to burn him, but in his face. But no, like he's finally taking charge a little bit. He's taking like charge of a situation, even if it's like not a situation he should even be in. Like
yeah,
you kind of feel like maybe he's not just weak and helpless. In
yeah,
some way he's finally kind of found some agency, which is fine. Um, but again, it does put this doubt in your head. Like, is this him? Is this really who he is? And because we obviously we have the plot here where he's smuggling in the drugs from uh his his the other inmates like mother's vagina.
yeah,
Uh, which I have to admit, it took me a second. When he said that he couldn't do it, and Freddie said, "Well, you can't expect him to do it." It took me a second to realise the reason why he couldn't do it is because it was his own mother's vagina that they were coming
yeah,
out of. I'm like, you know what? Freddie's got a little bit of class that he's not making him do it
yeah,
because, you know, vile.
yeah,
But I like, nah, like there's some stuff to come out of the prison scenes and storyline, but we've spent so much time, like so much more than I thought it was, that and it's not necessarily what I'm overly interested in, even though a big part of the early stuff was like feeling what
mhm,
Naz is feeling in any given situation. But he's at a point now where I can't really sympathise with him anymore
yeah.
because I don't like I can't relate to what he's going through anymore. Um,
What
I,
what?
I was going to say though before anything else is I mentioned like what this might be like, not a metaphor, but the message here is that if you put an innocent person, assuming he is innocent, of course, we've talked about how there's a chance he might not be, but if you put an innocent person who is by all definition a good guy, hard-working
Mhm.
college student, never been in trouble, if you put him into the system will make him a criminal. Like
Yeah,
that idea.
and yeah, that's definitely something I've heard before. Again, going back to this podcast that I recently started listening to, but they have had like, a couple of different prison episodes, and they have talked to like prison experts and stuff who have basically said the same thing. Like there's a big problem with this system where especially like a lot of like very petty crimes people are going away for and just becoming bigger, better criminals instead of being rehabilitated.
Mm.
Now, what I'm finding like really interesting is, I thought this was just gonna kind of strictly be like an investigation show, and I like that they're covering like every different aspect of this murder case. Like from the actual night to the arrest, like to the interviews, to the prison sentence, to the lawyers, to how it's affecting the parents. Um, like I like that it's going, even if some of the stuff is not as interesting as others, or maybe like certain parts you might not like as much. I do find it really fascinating that they're covering like every angle of it.
No, I like that they're covering all the angles, and some of it's stuff that I wouldn't have expected.
Mhm,
I do think the prison stuff is a little bit
mhm. It
too.
almost feels like a different show,
It
but
does, like it
yeah,
feels
like
so focused on the prison stuff at times that
yeah,
um, and it's almost like I almost think that after Naz went into the prison, that we almost should have left him and only seen him when someone goes to see him,
yeah,
and just leave what he's going through behind there a mystery almost, and obviously it'd be very different. You'd have to fill all that time with different stuff. Maybe the show
mhm,
would be shorter, like you'd cut like 2 whole episodes or something like that out of it, but it just I don't know, like. I think for me that's the weaker elements, even though there is some merit in there as to what it's doing and making us question that, especially in this episode. But no, but no, like I say, it's fantastically directed every week. Like it's been
Yeah.
some of the tense stuff, some of the tense moments has just been
Hmm.
edge of your seat kind of thing, which you don't necessarily always get from TV. So it's really impressive to done that. But no, that's the night of
Yeah.
part five. So
The well, actually one last scene I did just want to talk about real quick was that scene with him at the I guess it was high school or whatever.
at the
Uh
start, yeah, it's
yeah.
Stone.
Yeah. I don't know, I just thought that was kind of interesting, kind of funny scene.
Yeah, the teenagers
Like
kind of judging him for
yeah.
possibly helping criminals, and the girl bringing up Hitler, which
Yeah, it's like would you defend Hitler?
it's like Hitler killed my great grandfather.
Yeah.
Uh,
I just like
Jeez.
he like looks at the teacher, he's like, "You want to step in here anytime?" She's like, "No."
uh, I, yeah. Did you want to say something about it?
Just that I liked it.
Just that you liked it. You like that. You like that sort of. You like that sort of younger, like we're not in the grey areas of the world yet. We see things as white and black, and
Yeah, and then I liked just kind of seeing him like, you know, trying to. I think it's interesting the way like we see all these different people look at him because I feel like to us he's like a very good guy. Like we're rooting for him. He might kind of be like the hero of this show, I guess. But like a lot of people don't really seem to like him or respect him or
oh
yeah.
yeah, it was last one of the things that made me laugh a lot last week was the other lawyer laughing when the judge said Naz had legal representation
Yeah.
for the initial hearing,
Yeah.
and she's like, "No, he didn't. No, he didn't." And Stone's like sitting right there in the court, hearing all of this. But no, we're actually approaching half an hour, Tim, so I'm cutting
All
you
right.
off.
Cool.
So,
That's fine.
uh, yeah, that's been night of part five. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Uh, thoughts, theories, where you think it's going. Presumably, we have to be hitting court at some point in the last three episodes. Like that, it seems to be that's where the finale has to play out, right? Where they're in court and they get the verdict and all that. If they wanted to be dicks, they would end the show with, we find the defendant and then cut to credits,
Yeah.
and that would be the end of the show.
You decide.
Oh my god, that would be a nightmare actually.
That
Hopefully
would
don't do
like
that.
instantly make it like the worst show ever. Like that would be a crazy 180 of it going from like the best show in years to the worst show.
But no, so that's the night of. Thanks very much for watching, guys. We always appreciate it. Like and subscribe and all that stuff. It helps us out a lot. Thanks for watching, and we will see you next time.